The knock came a little after 9. Peeking through the peephole, I saw a car I hadn't seen in years. Maria was out front, beaming like she was about to take the stage, clutching a giant bouquet of lilies. Taran stood next to her, his hand kind of hovering behind her back, like he wasn't sure if it belonged there or not. "Hi, Mum," he said, like 6 years of silence could just vanish with that. Maria leaned in, flashing a smile that never reached her eyes. "Surprise! We were nearby and figured we'd drop in. Your backyard is perfect for our wedding." Before I could say anything, she swept past me like she owned the place, her heels clicking across the floor. Taran followed, glancing around the living room like he was scouting a location, not visiting his mother. "Yeah, we already told the planner," he said. "It's just one day, you'll host it." Like I was some kind of rental space. Like the last 6 years, the missed birthdays, the ignored messages, the surgery I went through alone meant nothing. Not even when I had to say goodbye to Brindle did he call. And now they were here, not with a single apology, but a whole plan for their party. Maria spun in the middle of my kitchen. "The light in here is perfect. Imagine the pictures. We could put the arch right there." "Stop," I said, quiet but sharp enough to freeze the air. They both turned. Maria blinked like she hadn't expected pushback. Taran shifted, looking uncomfortable. I looked at them, my son, who once told me I was a burden, and the woman who rolled her eyes when I invited them to Thanksgiving. "You didn't ask me," I said. Maria let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, Selena, come on. It's not like you're busy." She was right about that. I wasn't busy, not yet, but I would be. And it sure wouldn't involve folding napkins for a wedding I wasn't even wanted at. What got to me most wasn't anger. When Taran left, there wasn't a fight. No yelling, no slam doors. He didn't even cry. He just looked me straight in the eye and said, "Mum, you're dead weight. I need partners, not guilt trips and check-ins." Maria stood beside him, arms folded, silent. She didn't need to say a word. Her silence said plenty. I watched their car pull away. Her window was rolled up tight, their faces fading as they turned the corner. The silence that followed didn't feel loud. It felt endless. There was no call when the storm wrecked my roof. I sat alone that night, balancing a flashlight between my teeth, trying to catch the drips with buckets and towels. No one showed up. No text came when I retired after 37 years. I boxed up my office by myself and walked out without so much as a congrats or a bouquet. Even Brindle seemed to feel it. He stopped barking at the mailman, like he could tell something in the house was gone, something that might not come back. So I made a routine. Mornings with coffee right before sunrise, humming while I watered the herbs. Reading the paper, every page, even the classifieds. It was quiet. It was lonely, but it was mine. Then last Tuesday the phone rang. The voice was chipper, almost like it was scripted. "Hi, this is Garden and Grace Floral. We're just confirming the delivery for the Grammar Wedding 150, 2 chairs, 18 tables, 6 canopies, altar arrangements. Set for September 14th. I blinked. "Sorry, what?" The woman repeated the address, my address, then paused. "Wait, is this not Sina Grammar?" "It is," I said slowly. "But I didn't order any of that." She apologized, said she'd double-check with the client. But I already knew. The names, the address, that wasn't a mistake. I hung up and looked around the living room. The shelves were lined with old photos, none of them recent, none with Taran. Out back, the breeze moved gently through the yard, the same yard they thought they could just take. I barely slept that night. Some small, worn-out part of me, the one that had learned not to expect much, kept whispering, "This isn't over." So the next morning, I sat down at the computer and typed "grammar wedding" into the search bar. It popped up in seconds. Their whole wedding website, done up in soft pastels with a countdown ticking down to September 14th at 3 p.m. The venue? 228 Maple Hollow Road. My address, my house. The kicker? The description. The groom's childhood home, a perfect sentimental setting for an intimate garden celebration. I stared at the screen until my coffee went cold. There was a full vendor list, caterer, band, valet, all booked under my name, Sina Grammar. Then the email came in. Subject line, balance due, total 9,800. The payment method? A credit card under my name. Not a new one, an old joint account I'd once opened for Taran when he was in college. I thought I'd closed all that after Marcus died, but I guess I missed one, and Taran didn't. I printed the invoice, folded it neatly, and slid it into my planner. My heart didn't pound. My hands didn't shake. Everything felt still. This wasn't anger anymore. It was something sharper, quieter. Done. I pulled out my old address book and flipped past names I hadn't said out loud in years. Then I found the one I was looking for, Lita. We hadn't talked much since I retired, but I remembered her laugh, the way she didn't put up with anyone's crap, and her job. She ran the local community center. I dialed her number. "Sina?" she answered, surprised. "Everything okay?" I took a breath. "Does the collective wedding project still need a venue?" She paused, and then I heard the smile in her voice. "Wait, are you serious?" "Dead serious," I said. 2 days later, Lita showed up, her sensible shoes crunching along the gravel path. She had her old leather notebook in hand, the same kind she used to fill with half-legible notes back when we worked the clinic shifts together. She stopped in the middle of the yard, took it all in, the trees, the open lawn, the way the sun cut through the leaves. "This is beautiful, Sel," she said quietly. "But are you sure?" I gave her a single nod. "Absolutely." She didn't ask why. She didn't need to. The community center had been trying for months to pull off a collective wedding, one celebration for couples who couldn't afford their own. They had everything else ready, donated dresses, volunteer photographers, permits. What they didn't have was a place. Until now. I walked her through the garden as she took notes where the canopy could go, how the chairs might curve beneath the willow, the slope near the fence that could double as an altar. It felt surreal watching her map out a wedding in the same yard my son had just assumed was his, but it also felt right. For years, I gave everything I had to families who needed help. I caught their babies, bandaged their wounds, sat in waiting rooms, whispered prayers in hospital corridors. And when Marcus died, no one offered me a new chapter. When Taran called me deadweight, no one stood by me. So I decided to create that new beginning, not just for me, but for others. 6 couples. One pair met in a shelter, another in a grief group. One couple had been together for over 10 years, but never managed a ceremony because life just wouldn't slow down. They weren't asking for chandeliers or a 5-tier cake. They just wanted something that felt like theirs. Lita closed her notebook and gave me a soft smile. "We'll move forward. They're going to be so happy. And yes, the date works. I didn't need to ask which date. September 14th, the day Taran and Maria thought they could just take. But now, the backyard wouldn't be theirs. It wouldn't be some curated memory for a website bio. It would be something real, a place where people finally got their moment, and this time I'd be the one sending the invites. That Friday, the tent crew showed up. A guy in a bright blue t-shirt jumped out of the truck, clipboard in hand. He squinted at the house number, then grinned when he spotted me on the porch. "This the spot?" he called out. I nodded and opened the gate. He didn't wait for confirmation. The paperwork had already told him he was good to go. He started pacing the yard, snapping pictures with his phone. At one point, he even took a selfie in front of the hedges. "Big name wedding, huh? Your son must be someone important." I gave him a polite smile and handed him a cup of black coffee, no sugar. He thanked me like we were long-time friends, then drove off, none the wiser. Inside, I sat at my laptop. The fraud report was almost done. I attached the invoice, the screenshot of the charge I never authorized, the alert from the bank, all of it, clear and clean. No emotions, just the facts. Then I picked up the phone and dialed a number I'd written in the corner of my planner. "Marley?" I asked when someone answered. "Yes, this is Marley. You wrote that article last spring about the family that filled the community fridge, right?" A pause. "Yeah. Who is this?" "My name's Sina Grammer. I think you'll want to cover something happening on September 14th. 6 couples, a community wedding, right here in my backyard." She went quiet for a second. Then her voice lifted. "Will I have press access?" "You'll be front row," I told her. That night, I watched from the window as another delivery showed up, a box of string lights left neatly by the side gate. Just another piece of their perfect day, tucked into the garden. They had no idea I'd already replaced their big event with something entirely my own. Let them keep decorating. Let them believe. I wasn't going to stop it. Not yet. The truth would come soon enough. And I already knew the exact day it would land. I woke up before the sun. Outside my window, the sky was soft and grey-blue. The lake behind the trees, so still it looked like someone had pressed pause. I wrapped my hands around a warm mug and stood there for a while, just breathing it all in. But the house wasn't quiet anymore, not really. It had a new kind of energy. One couple was getting ready in the guest room. Another had turned the garage into a makeshift prep space. String lights draped from the rafters, mirrors leaned against the walls. The rest showed up early, still in jeans and t-shirts, carrying chairs, boxes of cupcakes, bunches of flowers. By mid-morning, the air smelled like fresh bread and carnations. Teenagers from the community center arrived, hauling folding chairs and setting them in gentle curves beneath the willow. Someone hit play on a playlist filled with light, happy songs. Through the kitchen window, I watched a photographer line up a couple beneath the arbor. Lita was near the fence, pointing and coordinating. Marley, the young reporter, stood off to the side, scribbling in her notepad and snapping photos, already in story mode. No one needed directions from me. That was the best part. This wasn't about me. It was theirs. I just opened the door. At exactly 12 p.m., I heard tires on gravel. The sound cut clean through the music. I didn't look. I didn't need to. A white SUV rolled to a stop by the mailbox. Taran got out first, stiff in a tux that looked better suited for a fashion shoot than a garden ceremony. Maria followed, lifting her lace train with care, her smile already slipping the second she looked up. She stopped cold. The chairs were filled. The lights were glowing. Food trucks lined the far edge of the yard, and stretched across the arbor was a huge hand-painted banner. United in Love Community Wedding Celebration, her mouth fell open. Taryn's face went pale, his fists clenched at his sides. They came expecting a stage, but the story had already started, and it wasn't about them. Maria didn't wait. Her heels punched into the grass as she marched forward, cutting through rows of seated guests and startled volunteers. Her voice rose over the music, sharp and furious. "This is our wedding. You knew this was the date." I stepped off the porch, the boards steady under my feet. Behind me, Marley stood with her notebook, and 2 community center staffers hovered nearby, frosting smudges on their shirts from setting up the dessert table. I kept my voice calm. "No, sweetheart, this is their wedding." She blinked, stunned, then turned sharply. Her face flushed red as she stormed over to a table and smacked one of the centerpieces, a jar of baby's breath and eucalyptus. It tipped over but didn't break. Someone gasped. A phone camera clicked. Everything was caught, the trembling hands, the dress, the fury that didn't match the lace she wore. I didn't move. "You used a credit card that wasn't yours," I said, voice even. "The planner, the rentals, the caterer, all charged to an account in my name. I've already reported the fraud. My lawyer knows everything." Maria froze, her breathing quickened. Taryn finally stepped forward, face flushed, jaw tight. "You picked strangers over your own son," he said, like it hurt to say it out loud. I looked him straight in the eye. They were still the same ones I used to see peeking over a blanket during bedtime stories. But they didn't look at me the same way anymore. "No," I said quietly. "You made that choice a long time ago." He didn't respond. Behind him, the SUV door hung open. Maria stood still, gripping her gown like it was the last thing she had control over. The music inside the tent had already shifted back to a soft, easy tune. 6 couples waited beneath the arbor, hands held, eyes bright, and I turned toward them, not away. By the time Taryn and Maria drove off, gravel spinning under their tires, the celebration had picked right back up. People started talking again, tentative at first, then warmer. Food was passed around. Laughter returned. Then a little boy with glitter dusted across his cheeks tugged on the hem of my dress and handed me a folded piece of paper. "I made this for you," he said proudly. On the front, written in marker, "Thank you for our big day." Inside, stick figures beamed beneath string lights. My throat caught. A little later, Jose and Marielle came over to find me. They were still in their ceremony outfits, soft grey pants, matching pale blue tops. Both worked as nursing assistants. Both carried that quiet calm that didn't need words to make itself known. Marielle reached for my hand, her eyes full. "We lost both our moms during COVID," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "We thought we'd never do this. It never felt right." Jose gave a small nod beside her. "This is the first time we've felt seen, really seen." I pulled them into a hug. Not the kind you give out of politeness. The kind you hold a little longer than expected, because there's nothing to say and everything to feel. Nearby, someone had started playing an old love song on a guitar. Just a few chords, nothing fancy, but it hit you right in the chest. Off to the side, another bride, the one with the second-hand lace dress and bare feet, twirled slowly in the grass, laughing. Her husband stood watching her like he was seeing a miracle. The smell of grilled vegetables floated in from the food truck line. Lita handed out lemonade. Someone's aunt wandered around with a basket of homemade cookies, pressing them into anyone's hands. A woman I didn't know walked up to me, balancing a paper plate and a fan. "Whose place is this?" she asked, glancing around the yard. "It's perfect." I looked at the lights strung between the trees, the grass worn down by dancing feet, the banner still fluttering gently above the arbor. "Mine," I said. "For a little while longer, I hope." She smiled and lifted her cup in a quiet toast before moving on. I stayed there a moment, watching the sunlight settle over everything, and felt something I hadn't let myself feel in a long time. This was a wedding worth being at. A week went by. The grass had already started to come back, tiny green blades pushing up through the spots where rows of chairs had flattened it. Every morning I wandered the garden with my coffee, listening to the quiet. And for the first time in a long while, it didn't feel empty. It felt like mine, peaceful. Then on Thursday, Georgia sent me a screenshot. It was a post from Maria's social media, still public. Stildramatik. The caption read, "Some wounds don't heal. Some betrayals echo forever." The photo showed her alone on a balcony, still in that wedding dress, staring out over some hazy skyline. The comments poured in full of sympathy, theories, pity. No mention of Taran, no ring, no new date. By Friday it was clear the wedding was off. I didn't hit like, I didn't comment, I didn't even open the post myself. There was nothing in it for me. Instead, I checked my inbox. There it was, a new message from the bank. Fraud claim approved. Refunded 9,800. I stared at the number for a while. Then I hit transfer. Every last dollar went straight into the scholarship fund Lita had started at the community center. It was a simple fund, small but meaningful. It paid for things like marriage license fees, basic legal paperwork, the kind of costs that could quietly shut the door on someone's future if they didn't have the money. That money was once taken to fund someone else's fantasy. Now it would help build something real. The next day, Taran sent an email. Just one sentence, bitter and sharp. "I never expected this from you. I let it sit there in drafts for an hour before I typed back. One line. That's the problem." He didn't reply. "No more SUVs pulled into my driveway. No more deliveries dumped by the gate. Just the soft rhythm of my own life. Quieter now, smaller in some ways, but steady, strong." A week later, I sat out on the porch with Lita. The sun was sinking low, casting warm golden light across the yard. She held her coffee with both hands, sipping slow, like she was tasting the warmth itself. "I didn't think it would feel like peace," I said quietly. She looked over with a soft smile. "That's what love does," she said. "It doesn't tear things down. It builds them back up." We didn't talk for a while after that. The breeze carried sounds from down the street, kids laughing, someone calling for their dog, a screen door slamming in the distance. Inside, the fridge was covered with thank you cards, crayon drawings from kids, folded notes scribbled in marker. One was even typed and laminated, none of them flashy, all of them real. I glanced out at the yard. The grass had nearly filled back in. A few spots were still flat where the arbor used to be, and here and there wildflowers had popped up where nothing had been planted. A little messy, a little unexpected, but alive. Lita turned to me. If he ever comes back? I didn't answer right away. A bird fluttered into the rosemary bush, shaking the stems, then vanished into the green. Then he'll find someone else living here now, I said finally. Someone I actually like. She raised her mug in a quiet toast. I raised mine too. For a long time, I thought I needed an apology, thought I needed some grand closure. But what I really needed was space. Space to grow something new where the old pain used to sit. I stood up, stretched, and stepped inside. The last of the sunlight hit one of the cards on the fridge just right. In big, shaky handwriting, it read, "You made our day possible. We'll never forget you. That was enough, more than enough.